Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone, and today I will tell you about the sequel to the film The Whole 9 Yards, a crime comedy, The Whole 10 Yards.
Jimmy, I thought I married a contract killer, not Martha Stewart. Hey!
40 years ago, the Hungarian Mafia leader is counting incomes in his office, but he is distracted by his two sons, who are constantly fighting. Then the Mafia leader takes $1 out of his safe, tears it in half and gives one part to Yanni and the other to Imi, and says that now they will become stronger together than alone. Our days. Professional hitman Jimmy Tulip Tudesky is hiding in Mexico after he gave to the police the Hungarian Mafia head, Laszlo Gogolek, and also killed his son Yanni Gogolek, and took 10 million Yanni's dollars. Jimmy runs the house, learns to cook and finds inner peace in the constant house cleaning. His wife, Jill, is terribly infuriated that in a year Jimmy has turned from a ruthless hitman into a crazy housewife. She also blames Jimmy for their failure to conceive a child. Meanwhile, Oz, the dentist who helped Jimmy get of Yanni Gogolek's corpse and an accidentally killed police officer, is also on the run with his wife. However, he is obsessed not with disguise, but with armament and fortification. He erected a 5-meter fence, installed the most modern security system, and bought several dozen M16 assault rifles from somewhere. He also plans to dig a moat with water around the fence perimeter. His paranoia is so great that even to child scouts, he opens the door with a gun in his hand. Meanwhile, the head of the Hungarian Mafia, Laszlo Gogolek, is getting out of prison. In a short time, he wins back his business, brutally cracking down on competitors. He also wants to revenge the murder of his son Yanni. Laszlo Gogolek finds out that a certain dentist Oz was Jimmy's neighbor and then married Jimmy's ex-wife Cynthia. Therefore he may know something. Laszlo Gogolek orders his son Strabanits to enter the dental clinic disguised as a patient and capture Oz. However, Oz puts a laughing gas mask on Strabanits and forgets to take it off in time. Strabanits faints and needs for ambulance assistance. Oz goes to have a lunch with his wife, who tells him she is pregnant. This makes her happy, but she worries that the child will be doomed to raise in an atmosphere of paranoia and panic. Oz, in response, claims that he is not afraid of anything. Suddenly, a balloon bursts in a cafe and Oz instantly jumps under the table. Cynthia gets into the car and calls her ex-husband Jimmy. She doesn't like laying to Oz, but the business she and Jimmy started is worth it. Cynthia sees Laszlo Gogolek's car in the back mirror and says that the game has begun. In the evening, Oz comes home with flowers and wants to apologize for his inappropriate jump under the table. However, instead of a wife, he finds Laszlo Gogolek and his gang, who in exchange for Cynthia wants to know how to find Jimmy the Tulip. Oz is horrified when he finds out that in front of him is Laszlo Gogolek, the father of the murdered Yanni. In desperation, Oz clapped his hands to turn off the lights and then runs out of the house. Laszlo is nevertheless pleased, because he is sure that Oz, without knowing it, will lead him to Jimmy. Laszlo Gogolek keeps kidnapped Cynthia at home. Meantime, she is more like a guest and not like a captive. Laszlo leaves his not too smart son, Strabanits, to look after her. Then he takes his gang and sets off after the GPS signal of Oz's blue Porsche. The next morning, Oz arrives at Jimmy's house in Mexico. Jimmy, in a rage, shoots Oz above the head to scare him because the guest arrived uninvited. Moreover, even knocked by car his favorite chicken. Jimmy flatly refuses to help Oz free Cynthia because he is no longer a hitman. He began a quiet, measured life. He likes to cook, to clean, and he does not want to change anything. Suddenly shots are fired outside and the window panes shatter. Jimmy and Jill arm themselves and lead Oz out the back door to jump in the Porsche and shoot through the tires of their pursuers before leaving the house at full speed. On the way, Jimmy decides to leave Oz's Porsche in the middle of Mexico and take a bus to Los Angeles to avoid being tracked by Mafia. However, Laszlo Gogolek, when he finds a Porsche at the entrance to the bus station, guesses that he needs to speed up, return to Los Angeles earlier, and sit there in ambush at the bus station. Meanwhile, Cynthia hints to Strabanits that his father considers him a useless idiot. Strabanits slaps her, leaves his 108-year-old grandmother to guard the captive, and goes to the bus station to prove to his father that he is not useless. There Jimmy captures Strabanits and then shows him to Laszlo and promises to contact him later to discuss the terms of his exchange for Cynthia. At Laszlo's house, meanwhile, Cynthia, after closing the old woman in the closet, searches the entire building. and when she fails to find what she needs, she lets the old woman out and sits down to drink tea with her as if nothing had happened. Jimmy decides to settle with his captive in a motel on the outskirts of the city. Jill doesn't really like the fact that she unsuccessfully begged her husband to return to the business for a year, but as soon as someone kidnapped his ex-wife, he immediately began to act. At the motel, Jill finds out that the crucifix, which Jimmy never takes off, was given to him by Cynthia, and when Jimmy even now flatly refuses to take it off, she feels offended and closes herself in the room. Jimmy takes Oz and goes to a bar for a drink and a chat. Jimmy is very worried that he is not able to become a father. He thinks that God is punishing him for his sins. After all, he does not take out the garbage on time, is not always polite with others, and also killed 22 persons. In addition, Jimmy admits that he hated his adoptive father. The morning after drinking, Jimmy and Oz wake up naked together. Oz is very frightened by this and also by the fact that his ass hurts. Jimmy says it's because Oz fell down the stairs yesterday. When Jimmy leaves for coffee, Jill decides to test whether jealousy really increases sexual activity. She takes off most of her clothes and hugs Oz, waiting for Jimmy to see them. When Jimmy returns, he throws Oz into a wall and then has passionate sex with Jill. Oz wakes up and decides to check if there are stairs near their motel. Opening the doors and looking around, Oz can't find any stairs. Later, Jimmy and Jill go to Oz's house to get armed. While everyone is distracted, Strabanitz cuts the ropes and hides in the trunk, taking the car keys with him. At this moment, Laszlo, who is negotiating the exchange terms, asks Jimmy to give the phone to Strabanitz. Suddenly, an unknown killer opens fire on them all standing near the car. Jimmy quickly connects the ignition wires. Jill and Oz jump into the car and they all make their way back to the motel. Opening the trunk with a button, Jimmy finds a dead Strabanitz, not a professional killer who did not to hit a single target, but fired from an automatic rifle with optics at close range from the back. Nevertheless, he hit the trunk and killed Strabanitz. Jimmy says that now Cynthia is doomed because they have no one to trade her for, and all because Jill did not guard the captive, and in general, she does not succeed in being a killer. After such words, Jill is offended. She gets into the car and leaves. Jimmy also leaves in an unknown direction. A few hours later, Jimmy finds out that his wife has accidentally taken his bag. Jill finds a dollar piece in the bag and hides it in her bra. Oz, who is left alone, drives to work. In complete desperation, he tells his assistant that his wife was kidnapped, and he, like a fool, instead of going to the police, asked for help from Jimmy Tulip. Suddenly, Jimmy appears on the threshold and says that he will help, and there is no need to call the police, because then Laszlo will definitely kill Cynthia. An assistant grabs Jimmy from behind and in 1 second puts him to sleep with chloroform. She tells a shocked Oz that her name is Jules Figueroa. She is the sister of Frankie Fix, whom Oz and Jimmy killed a year ago. Oz wakes up tied to a chair at Laszlo's house. Cynthia sits next to him in the same position and regretfully tells Jimmy that she did not find what she was looking for. Laszlo's fighters constantly walk through the bound captives and carry various saws, a bathtub and plastic bags. Oz understands that Cynthia came here on her own initiative and according to some premeditated plan. Laszlo Gogolek comes and says that Jimmy has disappointed him a lot. After all, it was he who taught Jimmy everything, but Jimmy meanly betrayed him. At that moment, Jill appears on the surveillance camera. She tied the dead Strabanitz to the seat and hung his hand on a thin wire to wave it and give the impression that her passenger is still alive. Jill says that the car is booby-trapped, so to kill her is a bad idea. Jill offers Laszlo a deal. She shows a $50 and asks to take her in share. For this, Laszlo asks her kill Jimmy first. When Jill tears the crucifix off her husband and demands him to swear that he is no longer in love with Cynthia, Jimmy replies that, firstly, he will always have some feelings for Cynthia, and secondly, Jill will not be able to kill him because she is a bad killer. She won't even hit the lamp from 10 steps. Jill shoots first at the lamp and then at Jimmy's chest. He falls with the chair. Laszlo takes Jill's $50, then pulls out his own one and joins both parts of his very first stolen dollar. He orders his fighters firstly to go free Strabanitz and then kill Jill. When the fighters try to open the door, the car explodes. At this moment, Jimmy gets up and in 1 second kills all the remaining fighters. Jimmy says Laszlo that Strabanitz was already dead at the time of the explosion. because Jules killed him earlier. Then Laszlo grabs a pistol and kills his mercenary. Oz is very shocked, so Jimmy explains that the scene with his murder had to be acted out in order for Laszlo to show where the second half of the dollar is hidden. When Jill is about to kill Laszlo, Jimmy says that this cannot be done, because Laszlo is his adoptive father. Hearing police sirens, Jimmy asks his wife to shoot his father in the leg and then leave the house. Already in the car, Jimmy explains to Oz that if he puts the two halves of the stolen dollar together, it will contain the number of the account in the Cayman Islands, where $280 million are, and they will divide them in half. Jimmy originally came up with a plan with Cynthia, and Jill found out about everything only yesterday. A minute later, Jill says that she is pregnant, and a happy Jimmy cannot hold back his tears. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to help grow the channel. Don't you think this film is a bit Indian? All each to each other or brother or father? Write in the comments, isn't it?